Rain poured over the empty city streets, painting reflections of streetlights across the wet asphalt. It was past midnight, and David Brooks, a 42-year-old taxi driver, sat in his yellow cab near the gas station, counting the few crumpled bills he'd made that night. He sighed. Another night, another struggle. Ever since his wife passed away 2 years ago, everything felt heavier. The steering wheel, the silence, the rain. Just as he was about to call it a night, his radio buzzed. Pickup needed, corner of 8th and Pine. One passenger, urgent. He almost ignored it until the dispatcher added, passenger seemed in distress. David frowned and turned the key. Something about that line tugged at him. He drove through the rain until he saw her, a young woman standing under a flickering streetlight, soaked to the bone, hugging her coat tightly. She looked lost, frightened, and heartbreakingly alone. He rolled down the window. Need a ride somewhere, ma'am? She hesitated, voice trembling. Do you take cash? David smiled softly. Cash, card, kindness, all accepted. A faint smile crossed her lips as she climbed in. He noticed the wedding ring, but her hands were shaking too much for a happy story. Where to? He asked. She looked out the window and whispered, just away. The city blurred by as rain traced paths down the glass. She didn't speak for a long time. Finally, David said gently, rough night. Her eyes glistened. You could say that. He didn't pry. He just drove steady, calm, letting silence do the healing. After half an hour, she finally exhaled. I'll pay you when I can. I just needed to get out of there. He shook his head. Don't worry about it. Some rides are meant to be free. She looked at him, really looked, and for the first time her eyes softened. Thank you. You don't know what you just saved me from. Before he could ask more, she said quietly, my name's Rachel. And as he dropped her off near a dimly lit bus station, she turned back and said, I'll find you someday. You deserve more than this city gives you. Then she disappeared into the night, leaving behind a faint trace of jasmine and a question that stayed with him long after the rain stopped. 3 days had passed since that stormy night, but David couldn't get the woman out of his mind. Every time his wipers brushed away the drizzle, he'd see her face soaked, scared, yet full of quiet strength. He dropped off hundreds of passengers before, but none like Rachel. Something about her goodbye, I'll find you someday, echoed like a promise from another life. That morning, as sunlight crept through his dusty apartment blinds, David put on his jacket and headed to the cab. Same route, same streets, same endless meter of survival, until he saw it, a small velvet box wedged between the backseat cushions. He frowned and picked it up. The velvet was soft but old, worn at the corners. On top, in faded gold lettering, were the initials, RM. His breath caught. Rachel. He hesitated before opening it. Inside wasn't what he expected. No jewelry, just a photo folded twice and a tiny brass key. He unfolded the photo carefully. It was a picture of Rachel with a little girl, maybe 5 years old, both smiling in front of a carousel. The same ring she wore that night shimmered faintly in the photo. On the back of the photo, a note in delicate handwriting. If I don't make it home, give this to Grace. She'll know where it belongs. David's stomach sank. Who was Grace? And what did Rachel mean by, if I don't make it home? He gripped the photo tighter. Something wasn't right. Later that evening, he drove through the same part of town where he'd picked her up. The streetlight still flickered, but she was gone. Only damp flyers on the pole remained, one of them torn halfway. He leaned closer. Missing woman Rachel Monroe, age 29, last seen on 8th and Pine. David froze. The photo matched her perfectly. His heart pounded as he read further. If found or seen, contact Detective Hall at the NYPD. He sank back in his seat. The rain started again, just like that night. She hadn't just been running away. She'd been escaping. The next morning, David walked into the police station, clutching the velvet box like it was proof of fate. At the front desk, a tall man with sharp eyes and a badge that read Detective Hall looked up. Can I help you, sir? David nodded nervously. I think I gave a ride to this woman, Rachel Monroe. The detective's eyes narrowed. You think? David handed him the flyer and the box. She left this in my cab, said her name was Rachel, said she'd pay me later, but now I see this. Hall opened the box, examined the photo, then looked at David. When exactly was this? 3 nights ago, during the storm. Hall's jaw tightened. She's been missing for 4. David's chest tightened. You mean she was already gone when I met her? Hall's tone softened slightly. No, maybe you were the last person who saw her alive. The words hit like a punch. That night, David couldn't sleep. Every sound outside made him flinch. The distant sirens, the tapping rain, the echo of Rachel's voice. He placed the photo on his table. Her and the little girl, Grace. He whispered to himself, "Where are you, Rachel? And what did I save you from?" Hours later, his phone buzzed. Unknown number. You shouldn't have gone to the police. He froze. The message came with a photo, his cab, parked outside his building, taken 5 minutes ago. He ran to the window. The street was empty, except for one thing, a small envelope taped to his windshield. Cautiously, he went outside, grabbed it and tore it open. Inside was a single line, written in the same handwriting as Rachel's note. "Don't trust anyone who asks about me, not even the police." And beneath that, the same brass key. Only now it had blood on it. The next morning, sunlight hit the brass key on David's table, faintly red, as if it still remembered the blood. He hadn't slept. His thoughts looped between the photo, Rachel's voice, and the message. "Don't trust anyone who asks about me, not even the police." He stared at the key again. It was small, old-fashioned, not for a car or a locker, more like something from another time. And the way it gleamed under light made him think. It didn't just open something. It belonged somewhere. He reached for the photo again. The carousel in the background, painted horses, chipped paint, and a faint sign behind them. Maplewood Park. A clue. By noon, he was back behind the wheel, the velvet box in his pocket and the key wrapped in a napkin. The rain had cleared, leaving behind that washed-out city smell, like the world had been crying too. He drove 2 hours north, past highways, coffee stands, and forests growing thicker by the mile. When he reached Maplewood Park, it felt like time had stopped. The carousel from the photo stood there, silent and broken, its colors faded by years of weather and neglect. He parked nearby and walked toward it, the boards creaking beneath his boots. That's when he noticed it, a small maintenance shed behind the carousel, and on its rusted door a keyhole. His pulse quickened. He hesitated, half afraid of what waited on the other side. Then slowly, he slid the brass key in. It turned with a soft click. Inside, the air was thick with dust and silence. Shelves lined with old boxes, carnival signs, and faded photos. And in the corner, a child's pink backpack. He knelt down, the tag read, Grace M. His heart pounded, the little girl from the photo. He unzipped the bag. Inside, children's drawings, a tiny stuffed bear, and a folded piece of paper that made his hands shake. It was a letter. "Mom, if you find this, I'll be with Aunt Claire. Don't come home. He's watching us." The writing was messy, a child's scrawl, but the fear in it was unmistakable. David's breath caught. "He's watching us, who?" He turned the paper over. There was a faint stamp from a school library, St. Helena Orphanage. Grace wasn't just missing, she'd been hidden. He rushed outside, heart racing, scanning the park for any sign of life. That's when he noticed a dark SUV parked near the trees. No one inside, or at least, no one visible. But its engine was running. He didn't wait to find out more. He jumped into his cab and sped off, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. Halfway down the road, his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. "You shouldn't have opened the shed." He almost threw the phone out the window. But then another message followed, this one with an address. St. Helena Orphanage, 12 miles east. And below it, 3 chilling words. "She's waiting for you." When he arrived, the orphanage looked half abandoned. Its windows cracked, paint peeling, surrounded by overgrown weeds. But a faint light glowed inside one room. He stepped in quietly, the floor groaning under his weight. The air smelled of old wood and rain. Then he saw her, a little girl sitting alone at a table, drawing with a blue crayon. "Grace," he whispered. She looked up, her big brown eyes mirroring the ones from the photo. "Are you my mom's friend?" she asked softly. David's throat tightened. Yes, I think I am." She smiled faintly, but her voice trembled. "Mom said if someone kind came for me, to give them this." She handed him a small folded note. His hands shook as he unfolded it. "If you found Grace, you're already being watched. Take her somewhere safe. And whatever happens, don't let Hall find her." David froze. Detective Hall, the one he'd already gone to. He turned toward the door and his heart stopped. Through the rain-streaked window, headlights glowed. That same black SUV was parked outside again. Rain hammered the orphanage windows like restless fingers. David pulled Grace close, his heartbeat matching the rhythm outside. The black SUV's headlights burned through the mist, steady, unblinking. Whoever was inside wasn't just waiting, they were watching. He scanned the room, one exit in the back, half blocked by old desks. "Grace," he whispered, crouching to her eye level. "We're going to play a game, okay? It's called Quiet Run. You hold my hand and no matter what happens, you don't let go." The girl nodded, brave but trembling. They slipped out through the back corridor. The wooden floor moaned beneath their steps. When they reached the door, David pushed it open and froze. A silhouette stood outside, tall still, holding an umbrella. Then a voice, calm, too calm. "Mr. Hale, I told you to stay away." Detective Hall, but his badge wasn't visible now, only the faint glint of a gun holster under his coat. "Where's Rachel?" David demanded. Hall's lips twitched. "She made her choices, don't make her mistakes." He took one step forward, the kind predators take when they know you're cornered. Grace gripped David's sleeve tighter. "He's the man from the car," she whispered. David's blood ran cold. Without thinking, he yanked open a side door and bolted with Grace into the rain. Behind them, Hall shouted, the sound of boots and thunder merging into one. They ran through the drenched field, the grass high enough to swallow them from sight. In the distance, David saw faint lights, maybe a farmhouse, maybe a miracle. Almost there, he gasped. A gunshot split the air. The bullet hit the tree beside them, spraying bark across his face. He shielded Grace, pulling her behind an old shed. His lungs burned, rain mixing with sweat and fear. Grace looked up at him, soaked, shivering. "Mom said, if he ever finds me, run to the stars." David frowned. "Stars?" She pointed through the storm, toward a neon sign glowing faintly in the distance. "Starlight Motel." "Of course." He grabbed her hand and sprinted again, every step echoing desperation. Behind them, headlights flared, tires screeched. The SUV was coming fast. They dove behind the motel sign just as the SUV sped past, missing them by inches. For a long moment, neither moved, just breathing, just surviving. Then David whispered, "We'll stay here tonight. Then we find Rachel or whoever's left of her story." Grace nodded, eyes wide, holding onto her stuffed bear. But when she turned slightly, something small fell from its seam, a hidden microchip, blinking faintly red. David stared. "That's not a toy," he murmured. And outside, in the SUV parked across the street, a man lifted a headset and said quietly, "Target located, both alive." The motel room was small, flickering neon leaking through the blinds, painting the walls in blue and red stripes. David double-locked the door and drew the curtains shut. Grace sat on the bed, her stuffed bear, the one that held the chip, clutched to her chest. She looked exhausted, her eyes heavy with something no child should ever have to carry. David plugged his old dashcam cable into the microchip. The laptop blinked to life, static at first, then a folder appeared. "For David, if you ever find her." His heart stopped. Rachel's voice filled the room. "David, if you're seeing this, it means I failed. They took everything, my job, my name, and now they want Grace. The company, the one you drove me to that night, they weren't investors. They were cleaners, government-funded, burying data they couldn't control. Grace isn't just my daughter, David. She's the test subject they created, and I helped them until I realized what she really was." David froze. Test subject. The video cut to footage. Rachel, terrified in a sterile lab. Grace, only 5 years old, sitting under bright lights as doctors placed sensors on her head. Her brainwaves appeared on a monitor, pulsing patterns faster than any normal child. Then static. "If they find her, they'll use her again," Rachel's voice continued. "She's the key to unlocking something they lost, something human. Promise me, David, keep her away from Hall." The screen glitched, then ended with one last phrase. "Trust the stars, follow the light." The words echoed in his head. Trust the stars. He turned to the neon sign outside. Starlight Motel. Was this all planned? Grace looked up at him, trembling. Mom was crying in that video. Was it my fault? David knelt, holding her shoulders gently. No, sweetheart, she was trying to protect you. Before he could say more, headlights cut across the blinds, slow, searching. Someone had found them. He rushed to the window and peeked through. 2 men in suits stood near the SUV, scanning the rooms. Federal agents, he muttered, but their movements were too precise, too silent, not cops, hunters. David grabbed his keys and whispered, "We need to move, now." Grace hesitated, but the stars. He looked back at the neon flicker, then noticed something else. A small sticker beneath the motel's office sign. Starlight, a safe place for women and children. A shelter Rachel must have known. They ran toward the office. Inside, a kind-looking old woman looked up from her desk, startled. "Room trouble?" she asked. David panted. "Rachel Moore, she sent us." The woman's expression changed, fear, then recognition. "Room 9, she whispered. "Go now, don't stop." They ran down the hallway, rain dripping through a broken roof. When they reached room 9, David stopped dead. The door was already open. Inside, on the table, a photo of Rachel smiling, holding baby Grace, and next to it, a phone ringing. David picked it up slowly. Rachel's voice, alive, fragile, trembling. "David, you weren't supposed to find the chip yet. They're listening, but now it's too late. Take her to where it all began. The first place I told you I was scared." He whispered, "Rachel, you're alive." Silence, then a faint sob. "Run, David, he's right behind you." The line went dead. Outside, the motel lights flickered, then cut out entirely. And through the blackout, a man's voice echoed from the hall. "David Hale, step out. You've already lost." The hallway was pitch black, humming faintly with the dying buzz of motel lights. David's pulse thundered in his ears as he pulled Grace behind the door. Footsteps echoed, slow, heavy, deliberate. Whoever was out there wasn't searching. He already knew where David was. David looked around for anything, a lamp, a chair, something to defend himself. His fingers brushed against a rusted coat hook and he gripped it tight. Then the footsteps stopped. The voice came again, closer this time. "You think you're saving her, Hale. You're just delaying what's inevitable." Hull, the same calm menace that haunted Rachel's recordings. Grace whimpered softly, burying her face in David's jacket. David whispered, "Stay behind me, don't move." The doorknob turned once, twice, then silence. David held his breath. Suddenly, bang, the door burst open, and Hall stepped in, gun drawn, his trench coat dripping from the rain. David swung the hook, it struck Hall's arm. The gun clattered to the floor. They fought, crashing into the table, knocking the lamp over. Sparks flew. Hall snarled, "You don't know what she is." David pushed him back. "She's a child." Hall slammed him against the wall, eyes wild. "She's a weapon, and you're standing in the way of national security." Grace screamed, "Stop!" And in that moment, every light in the room flickered on at once. The neon sign outside flared blinding white. Hall froze. The TV flicked on by itself, static roaring. Grace's eyes glowed faintly, her small hands trembling in the light. David stared in disbelief. "Grace, what are you doing?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "Mom said I can stop them if I try hard enough." Hall staggered back, his phone buzzing violently in his pocket, screens across the room glitching, distorting faces, symbols, data flashing like lightning. The room felt alive, electric breathing pulsing around them. Then in a flash, the lights died again. Hall dropped to his knees, dazed and bleeding from his temple. David grabbed Grace's hand and ran. Down the hall, out the back door, into the rain again. Behind them, smoke rose from the motel wiring. The starlight sign sputtered and went dark, the last spark fading into nothing. They didn't stop running until they reached the edge of the woods. Both drenched, gasping. David knelt, shaking. "Grace, how did you do that?" She sniffled. "They taught me at the lab, but Mom said never use it unless I'm scared." He looked at her, the same eyes Rachel had in the photo, now glowing faintly under the moonlight. "Grace," he whispered, "where was your mom when she said she was scared?" She thought for a moment, then said softly, "The bridge, the one with the stars painted under it." David's chest tightened. He knew the place, the old Silverbridge overpass just outside the city. That's where Rachel first told him she was afraid, months before that night. He stood, wiping rain from his face. "Then that's where we go." But as he turned toward the car, something glinted in the mud. Hall's phone. The screen cracked but still on, and on it a video feed. Rachel, alive, bound to a chair in a dimly lit room. Her voice came through faintly. "David, please, don't bring her here." Then the feed cut out. David's blood ran cold. Someone had just sent that video, and from deep in the woods, the faint hum of drones began to rise. The forest path was slick with rain and mud. Every snap of a twig made David flinch. Grace clung to his jacket like her life depended on it, and maybe it did. Ahead, the faint glow of Silverbridge overpass shimmered through the fog. The stars painted on the underside flickered with the remnants of old streetlights, like celestial fingerprints left for those who looked too hard. David slowed, scanning the perimeter. Drones hummed softly, barely visible above the mist. They weren't just watching, they were hunting. "David," Grace whispered, "Mom said this place is special. It's where she first saw the stars without fear." He nodded. "Then we keep moving." As they reached the bridge, a flash of movement caught his eye. A shadow darted across the road. Hall, the former detective, drenched and silent, blocked the way. His eyes were sharper than ever, no hesitation, no remorse. David didn't flinch. He pulled Grace closer. "Stay behind me. No matter what, don't let go." Hall smirked. "You think you're clever. You're just walking into the trap your friend set for you." "Rachel isn't your friend," David spat. "She trusted us, and you'll never understand that." Hall raised a gun, but before he could fire, Grace stepped forward. Her small hand glowed faintly, almost ethereal. The air around them thickened, electric tension tangling with the rain. David froze. "She's doing it again." The gun wavered in Hall's hands. Sparks of energy shot along the metal, shorting circuits in nearby cameras and drones. He staggered, dropping the weapon. David grabbed Grace's hand, running across the bridge, the stars painted above guiding them like a celestial path. Beneath the bridge in the shadows, David spotted a figure, Rachel, bound, gagged, but alive. Her eyes widened as she saw them. "David, Grace, go," she whispered through the gag, tears streaking her face. "No, Mom, we're not leaving you," Grace cried, her glow intensifying. David tore the ropes binding Rachel with trembling hands. The drones above whirred louder, more of them now. Then a flash, a blinding white light illuminated the bridge. Every painted star seemed to shimmer and pulse in sync with Grace. Rachel gasped. She can control it." David realized the child's gift wasn't just defense. It was power that could manipulate light, electronics, even perception. Hall recovered, rage in his eyes. He lunged, but Grace raised her hand. A pulse of energy knocked him off balance, sending him crashing into the railing. David helped Rachel up. "We need to run now." The three sprinted toward the forest exit, Grace's glow lighting the way. Behind them, Hall and his team regrouped, but David could see hesitation in their movements, fear of what the child could do. Finally, they reached a clearing, safe for now. The stars above the bridge twinkled like guardians watching over them. Rachel hugged Grace tightly. "You saved us," she whispered, her voice breaking. David, chest heaving, looked at them both. "No, she saved all of us." But in the distance, drones still patrolled, and Hall wasn't done. Some battles weren't over, not yet. The clearing beyond the bridge was quiet now, save for the soft hum of distant drones. Rain had stopped, leaving mist curling over the wet grass like fragile spirits. David, Rachel, and Grace crouched behind a fallen log, catching their breath. Rachel's eyes were wide, haunted. "David, I need to tell you everything," she whispered. "It's not just Grace, it's all of us." David shook his head. "Start talking. I don't care about your secrets, I care about keeping us alive." She took a shaky breath. "Years ago, I worked for them, the same people who made Grace what she is. I thought it was just research, something harmless. But they weren't scientists, they were hunters. They wanted to weaponize human potential. And Grace, she was the culmination of their work." Grace, small and glowing faintly, wrapped herself around Rachel's waist. "Mom, I'm scared." Rachel stroked her hair, whispering, "I know, baby. I never wanted this for you." David's hands clenched into fists. "Then why didn't you run sooner?" "Because running isn't enough," Rachel said bitterly. "I had to hide her. I had to make sure she could protect herself. And I had to leave a trail for someone who could be trusted. That night in your cab, I saw you, David. You were kind. And I knew you could help." David felt his throat tighten. All this because of one act of kindness. Rachel pulled a small, weathered notebook from her coat pocket. This is Grace's story. Every test, every escape, every time they tried to track her. I wrote it down in code. And the key was always to lead someone I could trust to her. David opened the notebook carefully. Charts, maps, cryptic notes. And at the very end, a sketch of the Silverbridge overpass, stars painted beneath it. a symbol of hope hiding a hatch. Rachel's voice dropped to a whisper. "There's a bunker under the bridge. That's where I plan to keep her safe fully finally, but they know it exists. They'll come." David's heart pounded. "Then we go there now. We have to get Grace somewhere truly safe." Grace nodded, her small hand glowing brighter. "Mom, I'll help." Together they ran toward the bridge. David found the hatch, hidden beneath layers of mud and debris. It groaned as he lifted it. The cold wind from below smelled like metal and earth, like a secret waiting decades to be discovered. Inside, the bunker was dimly lit by emergency lights. Strange equipment lined the walls, monitors, sensors, and a small containment pod. Grace's eyes widened. That's what they wanted to use you for," Rachel whispered. "To control her powers, but now it can protect her." David helped Rachel and Grace inside. The bunker doors sealed with a hiss. For a moment, silence reigned, the outside world, the hunters, the drones, all cut off. Rachel took a deep breath. "David, there's one more thing. Grace isn't just powerful, she's unique. If Hall or anyone else captures her again, they could use her to manipulate more than we can imagine. Governments, people, lives, everything." David swallowed hard. "Then we destroy the hatch after we use it." Rachel shook her head. "No, she's safe here, but the choice is yours. If we leave, it's war. If we stay, it's hiding. And hiding only lasts so long." Grace looked up at him, eyes shining. "David, I trust you." The weight of the choice hit him like a freight train. He had rescued her from the rain, from Hall, from hunters. But now the fate of the child, of Rachel, of the secret she carried, rested entirely in his hands. Outside, in the mist and shadows, drones circled. Hall's voice echoed faintly from a distant speaker. "Hale, you can't hide her forever. She belongs to us." David clenched the notebook, the brass key in Grace's hand. "We'll see about that." The stars painted under the bridge flickered faintly, like a promise, the first hope they'd had in years. The bunker beneath Silver Bridge was silent but tense. Rain had stopped entirely, leaving only the low mist curling around the bridge above. David crouched beside Grace, holding her small, glowing hand, feeling the hum of her energy through his fingertips. Rachel's eyes scanned the monitors, each one flickering with the shadows of drones circling outside. "They're not leaving, not until they get her, or us." David's jaw tightened. "Then we fight. We can't hide forever, not after everything she's been through." Grace looked up at him, fear and determination in her eyes. "Mom said, sometimes the stars choose who will protect the light." David swallowed hard. The stars. The painted ceiling above the bridge, the glowing symbols guiding them, it wasn't just decoration. It was a signal, a pattern, a way to fight back. Rachel moved toward a control panel, her fingers dancing over buttons and levers. "The bunker has defense protocols, EMP bursts, electric fields, but I can't control everything. Grace, you'll have to focus." The little girl nodded, tiny hands glowing brighter, almost blinding now. David felt the energy ripple through the room like a heartbeat. Outside, headlights approached. Hall and his team, their figures barely visible through the mist, rifles in hand, eyes scanning for the glowing child. David clenched his fists. "Whatever happens, we stay together." Suddenly, Grace lifted her hands. A pulse of energy shot from her palms, rippling outward. Drones faltered, sparks flying from engines, cameras frying instantly. The glow pulsed stronger, feeding off the stars painted above the bunker. Rachel's voice was urgent. "Keep going, Grace, it's working. But you need to stay focused, don't let fear control you." David pulled her close. "You're stronger than they ever imagined. Show them." Hall's voice crackled over a speaker hidden outside. "Hale, give us the child. You know you can't win." David shook his head. "We don't negotiate with people like you." Grace concentrated, her glow intensifying. The bunker lights flickered in response, then surged into a radiant aura. Electric arcs danced across the walls, zapping security cameras, shorting circuits in the approaching SUVs, and throwing Hall's men into chaos. Rachel's fingers moved rapidly across the control panel. "I'm redirecting the power to the perimeter. The bridge will become a trap. Any unauthorized entry will be stunned." David helped Rachel and Grace to the central hatch. The stars above shimmered in perfect alignment with Grace's aura, almost as if the night sky itself was aiding them. The first hunter stumbled into the edge of the field. Sparks leapt from the ground, sending him tumbling. Another tried to rush the bunker, instant paralysis, his weapon dropping harmlessly. David exhaled sharply. It's working, she's controlling it all. Then from the darkness, Hall appeared. He had recovered, eyes blazing with fury. You think a child can stop me? Grace's eyes met his. Calm, unwavering. Her glow flared brighter than ever. For a heartbeat, it wasn't just light, it was justice, love, protection. Hall staggered, shields shorting, body shaking as the energy overwhelmed his senses. Rachel cried out, running to Grace. You're amazing, baby, my little star. David watched Hall fall to his knees, his plan undone, his threats meaningless against the child who had survived so much. The mist lifted slightly. The stars above reflected on the wet bridge, like witnesses to the victory. For the first time in years, the three of them could breathe. David hugged Rachel and Grace tightly. We did it, we survived. Rachel smiled weakly, tears running down her face. No, David, she did it. Grace, you chose to protect us. You followed the stars. Grace whispered softly, I just listened. The bunker door sealed behind them. The outside world still dangerous but momentarily defeated. And above them, the stars under Silverbridge glowed, eternal, guiding, a promise of hope. Dawn broke slowly over Silverbridge, the mist lifting like a curtain revealing the world anew. David, Rachel, and Grace stood at the edge of the forest, watching the first streaks of sunlight paint the sky. The bunker was behind them, a symbol of survival and secrecy. Hall and his hunters had retreated, for now, defeated by the power Grace had embraced, guided by the stars above. David knelt beside Grace, holding her glowing hand. The world will never understand what you can do, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you're safe. Rachel wrapped her arms around both of them. We've been hunted, scared, alone, but now we can finally choose how to live together. Grace smiled faintly, her glow softening to a warm shimmer. I just want to be with you and listen to the stars. David looked up at the painted overpass above, the stars twinkling faintly even in the daylight, a promise of hope, a reminder of everything they had survived. Rachel took a deep breath. We'll stay hidden, but we won't live in fear. Grace's gift, it's not just for running, it's for protecting, guiding, maybe even inspiring. David nodded. Then we live boldly, and we make sure no one else takes her light away. For a moment, the three of them stood together, hearts synchronized, knowing they had won a battle, but that life would always demand courage. The camera pans upward, showing the stars above Silverbridge shining faintly on the wet streets below. A final whisper of hope lingers in the mist. Sometimes the brightest light comes from the smallest star. David turns to the camera, a half-smile breaking through exhaustion. Thanks for following our story, but the journey doesn't end here. Keep watching the stars. Rachel adds softly, if you loved following Grace's journey, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's more to come. Grace waves, a tiny hand glowing in the early morning light. Bye, and remember, stars always guide you home. The screen fades to black. The end. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell. Join us for more stories where courage, love, and mystery collide.